Welcome to Facts and History. Today I'm going to present to you the five greatest victories of the Crusaders in the Holy Land. Between 1096 and 1291, the Franks fought many battles in the name of Christ and for the Crusader states. Today we will just focus on the battle that pitted Christian army against Muslim armies. Therefore, the victories of the First Crusade and the expedition against the Catars in southern France will not be included. I personally choose these five battles, so it's a subjective ranking. I think I have put the most epic confrontation, at least for the Christian world and Christianity. I will also make a video dedicated to the biggest defeats of the Crusaders. So let's move on. Number 5. The Battle of Ascalon, 1099. Only 1 month after the capture of Jerusalem by the Crusaders, their new conquest was already threatened. After hearing about the massacres committed after the fall of the Holy City, many Muslim cities on the verge of surrendering, such as Beirut and Tyre, finally let their door close. On the 12th of August, a Fatimid army arrived in Palestine. Godefroy of Bouillon, aware of the strait, decided to unite all of the Frankish barons, while Raymond of Saint-Gilles was disappointed that he had not survived the title of King of Jerusalem, while Tancred fought for the Principality of Antioch. Despite of all this, the Christians managed to be unified. The rapid attack of the Christian knights surprised the Arabs, who were routed in a short time. After this brilliant victory, the discord between Raymond and Godfrey prevented the Crusaders from taking the city of Ascalon. Number 4. The Siege of Antioch. Well, this siege is, I think, one of the most epic in history. At the beginning of the First Crusade, after crossing Anatolia and the Great Battle of Daridia, the Crusaders arrived at Antioch, one of the most fortified cities in the East, ruled by Yagysian. The few Turks who tried to crush the Franks were repulsed by Bohemond of Taranto. But the food began to run out. All seemed lost, but Bohemond was the more than determined to take the city. He made the other barons believe that he was going to leave, but the other barons could not afford to lose such a great strategist, and to make him stay, they promised him to rule the city once it was taken. But Bohemond in Constantinople had sworn loyalty to Alexius I Komnenos, the emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire. The Norman was therefore afraid that, like in Nicaea, the city would be returned to the Eastern Roman Empire. He told the Roman general Tatius that the Franks wanted to kill him, which caused the Byzantine army to flee. After scaring away the Muslim spies, disguised as Armenian by acting like cannibals, Bohemond negotiated with Firuz, an inhabitant of Antioch, to enter in the city. After the entry of the Franks into the city the next day, the Turkish army of Carboca arrived. But after the Christians had found the Holy Lands in Antioch, a general sortie was organized to repel the army that had just besieged them. After an epic charge, the victory was total for the Crusaders. Number 3. The Battle of Arsuf. We are leaving the First Crusade for the Third Crusade now. I think that this crusade is one of the most interesting, thanks to Conrad of Montferrat, but this expedition to retake Jerusalem is mostly led by Philip II of France and Richard Lionheart, who both distinguished themselves during the siege of Acre in 1191. After the departure of the Capetian king, Richard decided to reconquer Palestine, supported by the Christian navy. The army led by the King of England moving south was harassed by Salah ad-Din's soldiers, but the Frankish crossbowmen managed to keep them away. The Frankish chainmail could even protect the Christian knight from Turkish arrows. Finally, Saladin was able to surround the army on September 7. The memory of the Battle of Atin came to mind for the Crusaders, but Richard was neither Guy de Lusignan nor Richard of Richefort. The situation was critical and the Hospitaller Knight found it difficult to hold out. Richard organized a charge to envelop the opponent. So even before the order of Richard Lionheart, the Hospitallers, Henri de Champagne, the Count Robert of Dreux, and the Bishop of Beauvais rushed on the enemy. After having seen this magnificent spectacle, the king also charged. Finally, the soldiers of the Sultan fled, offering a brilliant victory for the Christians. Thanks to the Battle of Arsuf, the Battle of Atin was forgotten, and the Crusaders were able to approach Jerusalem 3 times. But that is another story. Number 2. The Siege of Jerusalem, 1099. While Baldwin of Boulogne began to create the Conti of Edessa and the son of Robert Guiscard, Bohemond of Tarento, founded the Principality of Antioch, the other Crusaders continued on their way to Jerusalem after some dispute between the Franks in the town of Marat al-Numan. Afraid of the Crusaders, the local emirs of Beirut and Acre preferred to help the Franks rather than go to war with the Christians. On June the 7th, the Crusaders arrived under the wall of the Holy City. 10 months before the arrival of the Christian armies, the Fatimids had taken the city back from the Turks. The Arabs, learning of the Frankish victories, quickly put the city in a state of defense. By mid-June, conditions became terrible for the Franks, especially because of the heat and lack of water. Moreover, the Crusaders did not have any siege engines at the beginning of the battle. But finally, a Genoese fleet arrived in Jaffa, full of supplies and equipment. And while Tancred of Hauteville was suffering from dysentery, he went to poop and found beams, which will be useful later to build siege machines. On July the 14th, the first assault took place, but it was a failure for the Crusaders because of the Greek fire used by the Fatimids. On the 15th, the city finally fell. Many Jews and Muslims were massacred. Most of them took refuge in the Mosque of Omar to avoid death. Tancred himself gave them his own banner to protect them from mass killing. The next day, the Normans realized that the poor refugees had been killed during the night. Well, this siege is obviously one of the most famous events of the Crusade, and rightly so because it is this battle that laid the foundation of the future Kingdom of Jerusalem. After the siege of Jerusalem in 1099, the Crusaders could finally say that the mission entrusted to them by Urban II was accomplished. But all that was missing was to design the first king of Jerusalem. The two great candidates were on the one hand Raymond de Saint-Gilles, who had put the crusade back on track after the disputes of Marat and was probably the most experienced leader of the crusade, thanks to his County of Toulouse in France and his fights in Spain against Muslims. But Godfrey of Bouillon was chosen for his great piety, but also because Raymond was the loyal servant of Alexius I, the Emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire, since his arrival in Constantinople. Number 1. The Battle of Montgisard, 1177. After the reign of King Amalric I, his son Baldwin IV of Jerusalem came to power. but in terrible condition. His teacher, William of Tyre, discovered one day that the young king was suffering from leprosy, and moreover Damascus and Cairo were unified by Saladin. Only Aleppo remained under the rule of the family of Nur ad-Din. The Kingdom of Jerusalem had to intervene in 1176 to prevent Aleppo from falling into the hands of Saladin. Baldwin IV won a brilliant victory at the age of 15. The next year, in 1177, instead of attacking the heart of Saladin's empire, so Egypt, as planned, Philip of Alsace left for northern Syria with the best horsemen and knights of the kingdom, leaving Baldwin defenseless in Jerusalem. In September of the same year, Saladin arrived in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, having learned that the Latin want an alliance with the Byzantine Empire. The army of the Leper King was composed of only 4,000 men. Largely outnumbered, the king had to flee Saladin's advance first to Ascalon and then to Ramla. With knights like Renaud of Châtillon and Balian d'Ibelin, the king launched a lightning attack to the north, while the Muslims saw that the Franks were still in the southeast. The Christians' charge made Saladin's men and even his personal guard retreat. Thanks to this brilliant victory of the 16-year-old king, Baldwin IV enters in history as one of the greatest crusaders in history, beside the knights of the First Crusade. Well, thanks for watching and see you next time in Fact in History. Goodbye.